In 1810, English merchant Peter Durande registered a patent for preserving food in tinned iron cans. The combination of the two techniques, sterilization in airtight cans, constituted the beginning of a new industrial epoch. At the end of the 19th century, fish canning factories appeared in the Algarve. The hermetic model for sealing cans was a revolution in the art of preserving food, as the refrigerator was only invented in 1876. In the process of preserving canned food, a food such as fish, which would spoil in a few hours at a temperature of 25 degrees Celsius, remains preserved for years. This happens because the hermetic sealing of the cans removes all the air, eliminating the possibility of bacteria surviving. Thus, the only ingredients are fish, salt and olive oil. 1853 is the date attributed to the oldest canning factory in Portugal, still in brine, Ramirez e Companhia Limitada, founded in Vila de Santo António, Algarve, making Ramirez the oldest producer and exporter of preserves in Portugal in Europe and one of the oldest in the world. Both in Vila de Santo António and in Algarve, both in the Algarve, the number of factories continued to increase during the second decade of the 20th century. This fact was no stranger to the increase in imports from the French market, the opening of the German market, thanks to the trade treaty with Portugal in 1910, and the increase in consumption of preserves during the war. Vila de Santo António also housed the most important lithography industry in the south of the country. At least until the First World War, Lagos was the largest canning center in the Algarve, later supplanted by Algarve. In that center, the start of the canning industry would have been very early, as in 1880 the first French canning factories were established here, escaping the sardine fishing crisis in Brittany. In 1889, the company Aliança Fabril Limited opened its doors. In 1890, the number of factories was 4. In January 1904, there were 8 olive oil factories and 3 crate factories to accommodate the fish. In 1905, the number of factories rose to 15, and, in 1908, their number was now in the dozen, with production ranging between 2 million and 2,500,000 kilograms of fish in cans. In 1903, the number of male and female workers in the canning factories in this center reached 625. In 1935 the number of workers in the center of Lagos was 758, 138 men and 620 women. Except, obviously, for the main raw material, which was fish, some olive oil and salt, the rest were all imported. Olive oil from Italy and Spain, tin plate from England, wire from Germany and wood for the barrels from Austria and Hungary. Essentially, manual work predominated. Standing out as industrial equipment are steam boilers, used to cook fish, dryers and greenhouses. The working day was from sun to sun, generally with 2 hours of rest in winter and 3 in summer, divided into 2 breaks. It was the only industry in the municipality of Lagos where there was night work. This was organized for women as follows. Women, older and younger, worked at night whenever there was fish. If work ended at 10 p.m., there would be no rest. Otherwise, the workers would have supper, from 10 p.m. to 11 p.m., and return to work until it was finished. If there was fish the next day, the women would go back to work. All work would be paid by the hour. Women started working in factories at the age of 14 and, since the work was not regulated, the workers were called by a siren whistle at any time of the day and night, depending on the arrival of the fish. There was a lot of excitement when the siren sounded. Women ran to the factories so as not to have their hours deducted and have work for the entire day. A former worker stated, "We were called by the siren to warn that fish had arrived at the factory. As long as there were fish we always had to work. I even worked all night. If it was night and we were lying down, we would have to get up and go to work. If this were not the case, there would be a punishment. You would not be able to work the next day." Many workers took their young children with them, as they had no one to take care of them. So they left us in a part of the factory, a kind of nursery guarded by other women. It was a hard life, but one of extraordinary importance for the family economy. After the end of the First World War, the market was booming and many entrepreneurs bet on canning as a business of the future. Even with falling demand, the number of factories in Portugal grew, reaching 400 in 1926. The result of an inflated market was obvious. Many canneries went bankrupt due to lack of demand. Another reason that made the economy difficult was the regulation of the Portuguese government at the time, with fees and taxes on products. Finally, there is the fact that national consumption has always been lower, with no internal demand to sustain high production. Even with a new increase in demand in 1938, due to the Second World War, only 158 factories were operating. Most went bankrupt, accumulating huge debts and laying off hundreds of employees. After this hard fall, Portugal's canning industry had to reinvent itself. That was when producers identified a new market that appreciated quality preserves, with more sophistication and flavor. In previous decades, the product was seen as a quick, simple, and cheap food to feed troops. In the following decades, even though the artisanal production technique was maintained, quality improved a lot. The big difference was the selectivity of ingredients to result in tastier preserves. Sophistication has made Portugal a country awarded for its preserves. The culture and tradition of Portugal's canning industry have been maintained and promise to live on for many years to come. The image we see now gives us an idea of what daycare centers were like inside the industries. In these deposits that we can see in the video now, olive oil was stored, which was added to fish cans. Mainly sardines. Only then were the cans closed hermetically. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also see more videos and photos on our Instagram and Facebook pages.